The Game Boy isn't just an important piece of gaming history. There are a ton of great Game Boy games that are still great today and totally worth playing. And today I'm going to show you 5 of the lesser known games that you might not know about. Does that sound good? Yes. Yes, it does. Hello, hi there, I'm TechDweeb, welcome. Thanks for clicking on the video today. The Game Boy is a special thing to me. Getting my first Game Boy was a defining moment in my life. Not only because the story of how I got my Game Boy is an important memory for me, but in the years after, having a Game Boy was a big part of my life. I lived in a very small town in North Ontario, Canada, and I spent a lot of time in the car or on the school bus. Seriously, my bus ride was an hour and a half each way. That's child cruelty right there. But having a Game Boy turned my boring car and bus rides into fun video game rides, providing I had enough AA batteries on hand, of course. The Game Boy was my little friend who kept me company wherever I went, and it'll always have a special place in my heart. And, well, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The Game Boy library is full of lots of duds. Lots of great games, but lots of just dated, boring, old games. Everyone knows the best games, but I wanted to find some of the great Game Boy games that have kind of flown under the radar. I went through the entire Game Boy library, and I was surprised at how many great games there are that don't get much attention. So consider this video the first of many that I'll make about Game Boy hidden gems, because I have lots more to show you. I've picked 5 of them to show you today, and I hope I can show you why they're good and give you a few fun retro games to try out that you've never played before. Oh, by the way, I'm playing all these Game Boy games on this, the POW Kitty RGB 30 that was sent to me by GoGameGeek, and it is my current favorite handheld for playing Game Boy games, among other things. I'll link to my review of this in the description below if you want to know more about why I think it's so great for Game Boy, and there's also a link down there to where you could buy it from GoGameGeek if you want to pick one up for yourself. So let's quit gabbing and blabbing and dilly-dallying, as my mom would say, and get into these Game Boy hidden gems, shall we? First up, we have Monster Max. You play as Max, a rock star who apparently wears a monster costume. Your dreams of making it big are squashed by the evil King Kron, who has banned all music on the monster planet, which means, of course, that you need to go and defeat him and take back rock by completing all the levels of the Mega Hero Academy. I love it. I wish more modern games had simple, fun stories like that. The game world is portrayed in an isometric perspective. You move on diagonals, and there are items in the game world that you can find and equip. You have 2 item slots, A and B, and you can step on an item, press the slot button, and then you can press that button to do that thing. The items are your basic actions. There's some boots for jumping, some bombs, and a duck for ducking. You can also pick up some blocks to be able to place those, and you can also push around blocks and destroy some blocks with your bombs. There are environmental hazards that hurt you and roaming enemies, and there's power-ups that you can find, like a speed boost or a protection item that gives you a free hit. The gameplay loop is really just about going back and forth between rooms and finding the stuff that you need to get past the tricky parts or get past obstacles. It's pretty simple, but some of these scenarios are real noodle scratchers. The game is structured in levels, and you can choose which order that you do the levels in, and when you complete a set of levels, you can advance to the next group of levels. And each level has a unique set of puzzles and an overall style, and the art style is different between them. So some levels look like dungeons, some look like a lab, some are caves. I love that the tutorial area looks like a kindergarten classroom. And some of the puzzles aren't super clear and will leave you sitting there scratching your whiskers for a while, but they're always solvable, and that's just kind of the type of game that it is. It's a thinking game with a fun setting and a great art style, and you should play it. Next up, we're talking about this game. It might look like chess, but it's not. It's Castle Quest. The overworld is a linear map with challenges along the way. You get into an encounter and then you're in the battle mode, which is sort of a combination of a card game and a chess game. Your units are fantasy creatures. Demons, karate guys, claw birds, orc men, jesters, magicians, and your Sun King. The game board is divided up like a grid, and your characters move in unique ways, like chess. When you attack a monster, you go into a battle phase where you're drawing cards to attack. The cards are standard playing cards. Each creature has a defense value, and your card attacks have to be above that, and you'll chip away at each other's HP. If you get into trouble, you can attempt to run, and if successful, you'll retreat to a safe square. As you move or defeat creatures, you'll uncover stars on the board, which are sort of a bonus. If you land on one, you'll level up your piece and it'll fight better. Some units can do magic, like healing allies or shooting electricity across the map. When one of your units dies, you'll put a gravestone on your side of the board, and when you accumulate 5 gravestones, then your side of the game board will shrink and force you closer to the enemy. You keep the battle going back and forth, attacking and attempting to destroy units, strategically retreating and then going back on the attack, keeping your squishy magic users protected and trying to level up your dudes to get them tougher. And just like chess, the fight ends when either side loses their king. I'm sure there are guides out there to explain all the moves and everything better than I did, but I think part of the fun is figuring out what all the different stuff does and learning all the mechanics for yourself, which you will, because you're going to play this game because it's really interesting and fun. Every hidden gem video so far has contained a pinball game. This one is one of my favorite old pinball video games, Revenge of the Gator. Alright, so at first you're going to be like, oh, okay, this is just a basic, immature, simple pinball game for babies. Because at a glance, there's not much here. And it's kind of cutesy, childish art style. But if you can get past the kids game vibe and just enjoy it for what it is, a solid pinball game, you'll find that the simple design is actually what makes it a really tight, satisfying pinball game. This is one of those pinball games that has stages, vertically stacked areas on top of each other to turn the table into a series of mini tables. And each mini table has its own little challenges and style. A very similar format to Devil's Crush or Alien Crush, which are some of my favorites. What I like about this format is that within one table, you can have areas that feel unique. There are parts of the table that change slightly when they're hit and sort of toggle on and off, which affects your score. And there's not a ton of depth to the metagame of the table, but that's okay because the best part about this game is the mechanics. The ball physics are tight, which is something that can make or break a pinball game. And because the board is simple, you can really focus on the sweet, satisfying, realistic feel of hitting a metal ball with your paddles and watching it bounce around. And within this simple design of the table, there is definitely some depth. Once you learn the lanes and the angles for hitting the various targets, you'll find that it feels just as satisfying as any of the great pinball video games. It's a shame that there's only one table though. Lots of video pinball games only have one table, but often they mix it up by having extra things that happen, that change and evolve as you play. We do get a little bit of that here, but not much. And I don't mind it because sometimes I just want to turn my brain off and whack a ball around. And Revenge of the Gator is a perfect low fidelity, bare bones yet satisfying version of one of my favorite types of games. I still meet people who are really into the retro game hobby who have no idea how good of a game this is. And it's hands down my all-time favorite Game Boy game, so it just had to be on the list. Now, maybe you've played Burger Time on another system like the NES or the arcade, and maybe you have ideas about those games, but I'm here to tell you that Burger Time Deluxe on the Game Boy is basically a completely new game, sort of like the Game Boy version of Donkey Kong. You play as a burger chef who apparently is named Peter Pepper, and your burger restaurant has been invaded by pieces of sentient food like sausages and pickles, and it's your job to make the burgers by walking over the various burger layers like the buns and the patties and the lettuce, which sends them cascading down and hopefully squashing the food bad guys. Just like real life, obviously. You can collect items, you can get a salt shaker which can act as an enemy stunner. there's one-ups, there's an item that kills all the enemies on the screen, and another one that makes you invincible. So it's the same Burger Time core gameplay as the original, but what makes the Game Boy version unique is that each level switches things up and offers new layouts which are sort of puzzles that need to be solved. You quickly learn that the enemies are dumb as heck and that you can sort of manipulate their movements by where you choose to be when they reach the ladders, and then you can use their dumbness to your advantage by getting them into position to be easily squished. But the level designs force you to think in different ways because your techniques in one level might not work in another depending on the configuration of the platforms and the ladders. It's a mix of action and puzzle solving, which is so satisfying that I never get tired of it, even after all these years. There's 24 levels to get through, and I haven't been able to do it all in one go, and as much as I've played this, I still love trying again and again to get as far as I can before the dreaded game over screen. It's just a simple, satisfying game, easy to learn yet difficult to master, and it's one I personally never get bored of. And last but definitely not least is Trip World. You are a fluffy bunny. The bad bunny king comes along and uses his magic to attack the old good guy who's trying to protect the flower, and then the bad bunny takes the flower. Your name is Yakopoo, which is a pretty awesome name that I'm definitely going to name my firstborn child, and it's up to you to go out into Trip World, avoid dying, and hunt down the evil bunny and get the flower back. Yakopoo has 3 main forms that he can switch between at any time. There's the main form where he can run and jump and kick stuff with his adorable rabbit foot. There's the fish form, which doesn't do anything on land. You can just flop around like a fish, but you can use that in the water to swim like a fish. And then you can do this other form where you flatten your ears and they're like wings and you can fly for short periods. Also, as you explore, you'll come across various flowers that give you other powers, like this one where you can throw seeds, and this one where you can become a gerbil or something and you have a tail whip. You'll find so many cool little creatures. Most of them aren't hostile or trying to kill you. They're pretty harmless and they just kind of get in your way as obstacles. The art and the animations and the background scenery are so freaking well done in this one. This is Game Boy pixel art at its finest. The scenery in each level is different with tons of little details to notice if you're sightseeing, and the animations are so well done at showing what they're trying to show. The characters aren't very detailed, but they move in a way that they just feel real. I love the little details like how the water splashes when you jump around in it, for instance. There's just so much to see in this game, which is rare for a Game Boy game. The game is fairly easy, but if you suck at games like me, you'll find it challenging. I played a few times and I haven't made it past level 2, but I fully intend to keep trying to beat the game. I hear it's not very long, which is a good thing, in my opinion, because it means you'll actually have a chance of finishing it if you give it a try. And you should, because it's awesome. And that's it. Those are my 5 Game Boy hidden gems that I have for you today. Let me know if you have any Game Boy hidden gems to suggest. I have lots more awesome games to share with you, so get subscribed if you haven't yet because there's more on the way. If you liked this video, then check out this video where I showed you 10 spooky retro games that are perfect for Halloween. That was a fun one. There's a link on the screen right now and at the top of the description below, and you can go watch it now because we're done. I'm TechDweeb. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.